Right now the hens are wandering around. Soon it'll be visitor dog season and they'll have to be penned in. I've got my currants and my other ribus pruned for the spring. I'm hoping that'll work out okay. Got my line of raspberries. I'm hoping some of those overwintered okay. And the garlic has just started to come up, and I'm working on my compost pile. Here's this year's big compost pile. It's mostly chicken litter, so it's wood shavings and hen poo and chicken poo. And we stopped collecting that in the beginning of last spring, and it's been composting all winter. It's going to be a big deal. Just turning it because the more you turn it, the faster it goes, and I'm hoping for some more rain to help it stay wet, and looks like rain is on the horizon. Okay, so I just finished turning the pile. For me, that means I shovel it all over there and then I shove it all over here again. And it works. And this is quite a bit of compost, but you never have enough compost. And I try really hard with my compost, but I never really get a hot compost, not hot enough to sterilize anything. And if I just feel this pile right now, I mean, it is just ice cold. There's nothing going on there. And this is a real high nitrogen pile, so I kind of don't buy that hot compost. It's too hard for me to achieve. So I do a lot of half-assed composting. And I also do a lot of this sort of cold compost, where I just take whole tree chips and straw, let it rot on the ground. Up here in Ontario, it's been a real cold spring. We just had a brutal windstorm here. The only thing kicking in the garden is garlic. These are my two. I only did 2 rows last fall. Really, 1 row is scads. I think we can close the case of the missing hens. Something has eaten some hens back here. We were letting them out, and I think a fox has eaten a couple of them. I say a fox, but really, fox or a coyote. Probably a fox, because I hear foxes back in here. I've heard the vixen's scream. It's a real thing, the vixen scream. Look it up. I'm going to try to show you inside my pellet furnace. Going along pretty good. I did a lot of monkeying with the air inlets this year, and it has worked out very well. Here's the flue from that pellet boiler, and it's operating, and you really can't see anything coming out. You know, it's amazing. They were predicting freezing rain, I think, on Monday, and it's Saturday. Anyway, it's here big time. I have a way to keep the power from going out. You get your generator ready. This one hasn't started in forever, but me and this can of starter fluid have solved a lot of problems together. For a long time I played with Arduino microcontrollers, which are awesome, and then I always sort of had to connect them to something via, serial or whatever. And then I realized that these new chips, these 8266s, or what used to be called ESP32s, they're kind of a whole system on a chip, including a Wi-Fi transceiver and everything, including this really everything you need. And then there's a bunch of these development boards that break out all the pins for you, and they're pretty amazing. And you basically just need this and a USB cable and the Arduino dev environment on your computer, and you're off to the races. So I started using one of these for my. This is a dual H-bridge motor driver, which I want to use for my servo winch. Turns out actually this board is defective. Wah wah. But this is a great. This is like a Node MCU board. But then you don't really need all those pins for a lot of applications that you can think of. So they've got this other sort of package for the same chip, the D1 Mini, and it's pretty small. It's got very limited I/O pins, but really still 8 pins and an AD. So lots of possibilities there. And it comes, there's a bunch of sort of Lego for this little D1 Mini form factor. So this is sort of a power supply board, and actually this one came with this ridiculous gigantic barrel connector, which prevented it from fitting together with anything else. And this is a relay, pretty sizable sort of power relay module, and it's got the same sort of socket and pin pass-through standoffs on it. And anyway, I'm gonna put this stuff together, and we're going to do something useful here. So this power supply board seems to be some kind of switched mode power supply. I think it's about a half an amp at 3.3. These ESP the ESP chips all run at 3.3, which is new for me. Okay, so this stuff is all Legoed together now. Basically, I put the ESP8266 together with the power supply board and this relay module, and I'm leaving off this OLED display, which I have been playing around a bit with, but really having trouble finding a pre-made driver that works great. So I'm not using that right now. Alright, don't try this at home. Basically this is an extension cord here that I have tapped into one of the lines. I've tapped into the hot small spade, and we're going to put that in here on this normally open connection on the relay. This is for illustration only. Okay, here's our setup. We got the chip and the relay and the power supply together. We got the power supply getting 6 volts from the benchtop power supply. Got the programming cable off to my computer. Oh yeah, and we got this extension cord with a switch in it, which is this relay. Okay, so here we are in the Arduino dev environment, and I got to set up my Wi-Fi password, and I have to give it a host name. So I've got some code in here. It makes an HTML page. Basically this displays a page with an on button and an off button, and then it does a little logic to create a class that ends with the value of closed, and that's about it. And then when closed is 0, this class will have that color attribute, and when closed is 1, this class will have the color attribute. It's a way for me to color the button being on. So in here we don't do too much other than start the an HTTP server. So basically, when we get a request for slash for index, we just do that page render, and we pass the value off. And then when we get a request for on, we turn the relay pin high, and we say off is false, and then we redirect with a location in a 302. We redirect back to the root. And similarly, off is kind of the same thing. Basically, you get an off, you write the pin low, you say off is true, redirect back to this page, and this page displays the state of the button with the class. Anyway, you're going to see it in a second. It'll all make sense. The other interesting thing that goes on here is some sort of name server thing that I'm not very familiar with, despite being so there's this MDNS local DNS service, and it registers my host name. I gotta kind of review it myself. Basically, this host name that we declare up here gets used on this UDP protocol on my segment on the network to be recognized by name immediately. There's no DNS stuff required. I'm kind of curious as to what the heck is going on there myself. Anyway, yeah, okay, actually, it's multicast DNS. So this is, when my computer asks for wemos.local, it does a multicast on my network, and then anything that is named what we're asking for replies with its IP address. So the named service replies with an IP, and that's how we avoid having to set up DNS. Pretty awesome. But now that I've got my program uploaded, I'm going to just contact that Wemos, my hostname .local, to get that MDNS resolver service. And so now my computer. So I'll yank my USB. So I'm not talking to this thing through the USB cable anymore. Oh, another thing you need 3 hands for. Okay. So here we are. So now when somebody clicks on here, we get the on URL. Then it's going to redirect right back here and show that we're in the on state. And I can also click off. And I don't know if you can hear it, but that's the relay clicking on and off. So you can see where I'm going here. Okay, here comes the grand finale. So now I've got my funny extension cord with the relay in the middle plugged into mains 120 volt power, and I've got my lamp plugged into the end of that. So basically I've got the relay controlling the lamp, which is in the on position. So here comes the coup de grace. So now I can click on and the lamp goes on, and I can click off and the lamp goes off, and that'll work for anywhere that I'm on this Wi-Fi segment. This is pretty, this is a 10 amp, well, supposedly a 10 amp relay. So it could move some pretty meaty stuff. And really the question, it begs the question, could I jam this thing into a box, an electrical junction box, and make it legit with some kind of 6-volt power source, some kind of reactive power source, I don't know. And also, would the Wi-Fi get out of the junction box? It's worth an experiment. Anyway, okay, that's it. Adios.